What's going on, guys? My name's Theoatrix, and today I'm going to be talking about the most useful rings for all players in Oldschool Runescape. So I'm going to go through pretty much all the rings in the game, not all of them, but most of them, and I'm going to be talking about their uses and what they'd be great for. I hope you enjoy. So there is so many rings in the game, but I've categorized them into 5 or 4 different groups, and basically I'm going to be talking about each ring in that specific group. So starting off with the normal rings. These ones I've categorized into the ones that you can craft, and the first one from these is the Ring of Recoil, and this ring is a must if you're killing Zulrah for the snakelings that come around. And also this is a great ring for PKing, not only pure PKing, but for high level PKing, since it upgrades your vengeance hit a little bit. It makes you hit a little bit higher than what a vengeance normally would, and it also recoils all the damage. And this is specifically great for low level pure PKing, because the amount of hits that you're recoiling is such a big portion of the actual hit. So if they hit like a 7 and you recoil a 2 or a 3, that's like almost half of the hit recoiled straight away, and it really helps with getting kills. The next one is the Ring of Dueling, and this one has a multitude of really useful teleports. The main ones are the Castle Wars, which is very close to a bank, and then there is Clan Wars, which you can reset your hit points and prayer at in the portal. And then there's the Jewel Arena, which I hate that place, and sadly it doesn't give any bonuses, but it is very useful for doing quick trips at things like rune crafting, or perhaps if you finish a Zulrah kill or a boss kill, you can really quickly teleport to the Castle Wars area, bank your stuff, and get back right into whatever you were doing. The next ring is the Ring of Life, and this one is a diamond ring which has been enchanted, and this is probably the #1 ring that every single hardcore Iron Man account uses, since it really literally saves your account from keeping its hardcore Iron Man status. What it does is it teleports you to your respawn location once you're below 10% hit points. So this can be really useful, not really for PKing, since people get mad if that happens, and most of the time you can eat yourself out of being on low hit points. But I think a lot of people use this for God Wars bosses, where it's a pain to get back into the room, and some people also use it for quests where you'll take a lot of damage and it might save you if you're about to die. Now the next ring which you can imbue is the Zenite ring, and that is the Ring of Suffering, and this is actually probably one of the best rings in the game. You charge it with Rings of Recoil, and it can hold up to 10,000 recoil charges inside it, and it also gives +10 in all of the defense stats, plus a +2 prayer bonus. And with this ring, and with a lot of the rings I'm going to talk about, you can go to the Nightmare Zone and imbue the ring, and basically what that does is it doubles the stats that it gives. So it now gives 20 in all the defense stats and +4 prayer bonus. This ring is a must, well, not a must, but it is so highly recommended for Zulrah if you can afford it. And it's also great for all bosses, since it really helps with recoiling the boss itself or even just the minions. Now the final normal ring is the Slayer ring, and this one requires level 75 crafting to make, and you need to pay 300 Slayer points to get the ability to craft them. And you can actually buy these just with Slayer points and not have to learn them, and that costs 75 points, but in my opinion that is a huge waste of Slayer points, since you can just buy 4 rings for the price of getting the ability to craft them, which is unlimited rings. So I don't see why anyone would want to buy them. And basically what this does is it has some really great teleports, along with the Slayer log and the ability to chat to your Slayer Master, but you cannot get a new assignment from talking through the Slayer ring. Basically what it does is it can teleport you to the Slayer Tower in Canifus, which I don't use very often since Neve's Cave seems to have most of the monsters. The Fremennik Slayer dungeon, which is really handy because it's so close to a fairy ring. The Tarn's Lair, which is really handy for getting the Salve amulets if you lose them. The Stronghold Slayer Cave, which is right next to Neve, so this is probably the best teleport that you can get from it. And the last one is you can actually teleport straight to the Dark Beasts, provided you've started Morning Ends Part 2. The next rings, I'm going to be talking about the combat rings. And remember that imbuing all of these rings doubles its stats. So if you're thinking of getting any of these rings, you should definitely imbue them since it pretty much doubles their use. The first ring is the Tyrannical Ring, and that is a drop from Callisto, and it gives a +4 crush, attack, and defense bonus. This ring would be very useful on Abyssal Demons or Vetion or bosses that are weak to crush. And of course, imbuing it boosts this to a +8 crush, attack, and defense, and is the only ring in the game which gives a crush bonus. The Treasonous Ring is dropped from Venenatus, and this one gives a stab bonus, a +4 stab, attack, and defense bonus, and +8 again if you imbue it. This one is awesome for things like killing dragons since they are weak to stab. Wyverns are also weak to stab, and it's really handy and probably the best in slot for Corporal Beast. The next one is the Ring of the Gods, and that one is dropped from Vetion, which is probably the hardest and most tedious wilderness boss to kill, and it gives a +4 prayer bonus, which is +8 provided you have a Holy Wrench, since you need that to imbue it at the Nightmare Zone, and it gives a +1 in all the defense stats. This ring is almost 9 mil at the moment, and the reason for that is that it is so good for prayer slayer tasks or just activities where you need prayer in general. +8 prayer bonus for a ring is massive. The next combat rings are the Dagonoth King rings, and they are dropped as a 1 in 128, which isn't even rare, drop rate from their respective Dagonoth King. The first one is the Seer's Ring, and this one gives a +6 magic attack and defense, but the imbue gives it a +12 in both of these. Now, you're probably wondering, why is this ring only 300k in the Grand Exchange? And the reason for that is that it's only useful for things like Zulrah, but at Zulrah, you need a Ring of Recoil in the first place, so this ring is really not very used and not useful at all. The next ring is the Warrior's Ring, and this one gives a +4 slash attack and a slash defense bonus, +8 with the imbue. And this one is really cheap now. It used to be like 500k, and now it's almost 90k, I think. And this is basically a good welfare ring to use, since most players will be using a slash weapon in the first place to train, like a scimitar or a whip, and since it's only 90k, it's far better than buying the next ring, which is the Berserker Ring, which is almost 3 mil, I think it's 2.5 at the moment, and that gives a +4 strength bonus and a +4 crush defense bonus, and this can be doubled again with the Nightmare Zone, and this is, in my opinion, the second or even the best ring in the game for combat, especially melee combat, obviously. And the imbued Berserker Ring is probably the most used when doing Slayer tasks and killing bosses, since a +8 strength bonus really helps with your hits and the amount of hits you're dealing. The final Dagonoth King ring is the Archer's Ring, and this one gives a +4 or +8 with the imbue ranged attack and defense bonus. And this one is actually the most expensive at the moment of the Dagonoth King rings, and that's because ranged is such a powerful combat style in the game, and a +8 ranged attack is huge for a ring. So this ring would come in really handy at things like Jad. With a +8 range attack bonus, that's really going to help. Despite the best one is probably the Ring of the Gods for Jad, but the Archer's Ring will really help with the hit. And I can see it being useful for just training range in general, of course, and it will pretty much speed up your XP per hour by quite a bit. Now I'm going to be talking about the other kinds of rings in the game, which don't really have their own category. The first one is the ring that you receive from completing the What Lies Below quest, and this is the Beacon Ring, which is like a golden thin kind of ring, and this gives a +2 magic attack bonus and a +1 magic defense bonus. So this is pretty good considering it's like a free ring, and I'm guessing would be great for Iron Man accounts which haven't yet got the Seer's Ring and they want to get a magic boost. And the alternative to this is from the Lunar Diplomacy quest, and that is the Lunar Ring, which gives you a +2 magic attack and a +2 magic defense, +1 more than the Beacon Ring. The final ring in the other rings is the Ring of Charos A, and the A in the name means it's activated, and This is activated from the Garden of Tranquility quest. And basically, this ring can be used to persuade game characters in the game to charge less money for things like transporting with the magic carpet and the charter boats. And it can also be useful in some quests for saving some money and time, and other things like letting you choose the color of your cat from Gertrude, some random things like that. The final rings I'm going to talk about are the Cosmetic Rings. Now, these probably aren't all that useful at all, but I'm just going to talk about them anyway since they are pretty cool. The first one is the Ring of Stone, which is an onyx ring imbued, which is kind of sad since it is onyx, and you'd expect it to give some really strong combat bonuses, but all it does is it turns you into a mined ore rock, so that grey coloured rock. The next one is the Easter ring, and you get this from doing any Easter holiday event in the game, and it turns you into an Easter egg, which ends up looking a bit more like a ball since it's so round. I'm not sure why they did that, but it is pretty cool to become an egg, I guess. The next is the Ring of Nature, and this one is a reward from Elite Clue Scrolls, and this turns you into a bush. I guess this might be handy in PKing or something, but it's quite expensive since it only turns you into a bush. And the last one is the Ring of Coins, which is from Master Clue Scrolls, and this turns you into a large stack of coins, so like the 10k stack on the ground, and this one is pretty fun to troll with since lots of people think there's a stack of money on the ground. So since this video is about rings, and to be super precise, I guess fairy rings sort of do count. So to use a fairy ring in Oldschool Runescape, you need to have at least started the Fairy Tale Part 2 quests. And they have a lot of teleports across RuneScape, which can be so useful for things like the Abyssal Sire and for things like Slayer tasks such as Wyverns. And it's also required for a lot of hard and elite clue scrolls, where you have to dig in places where you can only go with the fairy rings. Now, I quickly want to add at the end of the video, you're probably wondering why I didn't include any of the new silver jewelry rings, and they're all actually really useless. They don't really have any good uses, and they're really not worth getting and using. Anyway, that's pretty much all the most useful rings in Oldschool RuneScape. I hope you did learn something today. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more daily Oldschool content. Thanks for watching.